The Education Resources Information Center, or ERIC, is a digital library of education research. ERIC is funded by the Institute of Education Sciences, or IES, in the U.S. Department of Education. ERIC reviews and selects sources for regular indexing. This video will address comprehensive versus selective indexing and how ERIC determines source coverage in the collection. Materials in ERIC include journal articles and non-journal materials such as reports, conference papers, and books. All must meet the ERIC selection policy standard of being directly related to the field of education as described by one or more of the topic areas in the IES authorizing legislation. This video will define comprehensive and selective coverage of the sources indexed in ERIC and provide insight into how ERIC makes decisions about the level of coverage for each source. Comprehensive and selective coverage are explained in the ERIC selection policy, which is available on the ERIC website. What is the difference between comprehensive and selective coverage? For comprehensively covered sources, ERIC creates records for all articles or documents received for indexing. For selectively covered sources, ERIC conducts a manual review of every article or document. Materials that conform to the selection policy standard and criteria are chosen for indexing. If an article from a selectively indexed source is not in ERIC, it may be because it did not meet the selection criteria. When and how does ERIC determine the coverage level of a source? The coverage level of a journal or non-journal source is determined during the source review process when ERIC considers new sources for indexing. To determine the coverage level, ERIC examines 3 to 5 current journal issues and a minimum of 2 years of non-journal content. For a journal to be comprehensively indexed, at least 80% of the articles in each issue must contain education research. ERIC creates a bibliographic record for each article in every acquired issue. 95% of the active journals in ERIC are comprehensively indexed. In selectively indexed journals, 50 to 79% of articles are education research. ERIC applies a manual article-by-article selection process and indexes only those that conform to the ERIC selection policy. ERIC only adds selectively indexed journals when they are critical for topic area coverage. 5% of the active journals in ERIC are selectively indexed. Of the non-journal sources in ERIC, only 8% are comprehensively indexed. These include the U.S. Department of Education, the Institute of Education Sciences and its centers, WhatWorks Clearinghouse, the regional educational laboratories, and a small number of non-government sources. The 92% of non-journal sources that are selectively indexed include other federal departments, state and local education agencies, university programs, education-related organizations, professional associations, international organizations, book publishers, and online submissions from authors. Does ERIC ever change the coverage level? Yes, ERIC may change the level of coverage at any time. Additionally, if a source drops below 50% education-related content, ERIC may stop covering it. Updating coverage levels is one way that ERIC provides users with the most relevant resources. If you think your journal or another source is a good fit for ERIC, or if you have a question about a source in ERIC, contact the ERIC Help Desk at ericrequests@ed.gov. For more resources related to this topic, check out the following.